events. All right. So today's presentation is going to be entitled "Why Nas's I Am leak was a blessing." All right. So once again, why Nas's I Am leak was a blessing. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Number one, Jay crosses the line. Obviously, these two individuals went back and forth with subliminal messages. That's what MCs did, right? You didn't have to typically say people's name to get your point across. But around the time of I Am and Nostradamus, people felt as though Nas fell off, which is a bit odd to me, but we'll talk about that later on. I Am gave us a classic hip-hop record that was an organic single with Nas's Light. And if you go back and listen to that album, it aged very well, right? But that gave Jay-Z the ammo to come at Nas with the infamous Takeover. Takeover touched on so many different things, and at that moment, people thought Nas was finished. I know I'm giving an overview that you all understand, but I'm just trying to line everything up chronologically so that it makes sense what I'm presenting. But Jay crossed the line, right? Because he felt that Nas is on the back or the tail end of his career, and it was a perfect opportunity to go and snatch what he thought was his. All right, so that would be number one. Number two, obviously, Takeover gave us or birthed Ether. Obviously, there were also some records in between that, but we got Ether out of that equation. Now, as far as Ether goes, I think it's important to state that for those who don't like the record and their only criticism is that it's a bunch of jokes and, he's not giving any factual information, I think that's totally disingenuous. And not to mention, most people would deem probably No Vaseline to be the best diss record in their estimation overall. I know a lot of people who feel that way. But although there's truth in that, there's a lot of jokes in No Vaseline as well. So we have to figure out how and why we deem certain things to work for other artists. And when someone else does the same thing, it works against them. So that's an individual thing. People will figure that out on their own. But as far as I'm concerned, Ether checked all boxes. And history has proven that. So now we've gotten Jay crosses the line, which led to Ether, right? And we're speaking on why Nas's I Am leak was a blessing. Why? Because if that album doesn't get leaked, we have possibly the best double CD in hip-hop history, right? Jay probably doesn't feel comfortable enough to cross the line. We don't get Ether, right? And which leads us to what? Number three, Stillmatic. Stillmatic, people always or often forget about this particular piece for this very reason. We spoke about Illmatic before, right? And then we went on to speak about It Was Written. Now we got I Am and Nostradamus. People were fixated with this 4 albums in 10 years I Can Divide, which wasn't truthful. It was very impactful. But if you are a fan, if you're someone who considers themselves to be a historian, a listener of music, not a listener of critics, a listener of music, you knew that it didn't really stand tall. Because I Am came out, was a dope project. Was it Nas's best project? No. But was it a flop? No. Not even material-wise, not album sales-wise. It was not a flop. Then he came with Nostradamus. Why? Because of the leak. He had to rush something. So you mean to tell me people said that he fell off in between I Am and Nostradamus? That's 6 months. Does anyone else judged in that way? Gave you 2 albums in 1 year. The second album, later in that year, you didn't like what you heard, and automatically he fell off because someone else told you that. Doesn't make sense. And Stillmatic, possibly, when it comes to highs, probably has it's Nas's best performance as far as highs go. You know what I mean? Like we always speak about how Primo and other producers he's worked with, he may have a better chemistry with Hit Boy, but Primo has higher highs. That's what I'm referring to. Like Stillmatic it's like watching Sports Center, fam. Like he pulled all the tricks out, let everybody know I can do whatever it is that you said I couldn't do, and I came back from what you said I couldn't come back from. Think about that. So this is 5 albums we're talking about. Illmatic, It Was Written, I Am, Nostradamus, and Stillmatic. 5 albums. And people possibly only like one of them. Who else is judged like this? But if I Am doesn't leak, these things don't happen. Because I believe that all that chatter birthed the hunger that Esco needed. So that was number 3. We started with what? Jay crosses the line. We get Ether, Stillmatic. And this is why it's important, right? We speak about why Nas's I Am leak was a blessing that we rarely even speak about. Number 4, what do we have? Last real ninjas alive. All right, so for all the Ether haters, now we have a record where he's speaking about something in chronological order, keeping you engaged. There are no jokes. It's 100% truth. But no one really ever talks about this record. Why? Why? It's all truth. It's all fact, right? He didn't throw any jabs with regards to jokes and things that people are showcasing the sense of humor. He gave you everything that you would have wanted in Ether. Speaking to the critics at this particular moment. But people rarely speak about this. But if the I Am leak doesn't happen, this is another record we don't receive. It's funny how life works out, right? Certain things have to happen for other doors to open up. So as fans, we walk around and critics speaking about this is trash, that's whack. But the things that you seem to harp on or make such a big deal about possibly could be giving that artist the hunger that they once had. And now you're getting all this classic material. And I'm speaking on Last Real Ninjas Alive, but let's not forget God's Son is fire. And don't be following that narrative with God's Stepson and Ninth Wonder beats sounded better. They sound good. They're good beats. But as a cohesive unit, those beats do not highlight the emotions attached to the writing. Go back and listen to it. Great soul beats. They're great beats by an extraordinary beat maker. But the production value wasn't great. And there's a difference between beat making and producing, but that's a whole different other video, all right? So that's number 4. Number 5, right? Let's not forget, we're transitioning from, we're going to let's not forget number 1. We started from why it was important that, why I Am was a blessing, the leak. Now, let's not forget number 1. I Am was dope. It was dope. Let's keep it a bean. I hear so many criticisms like even like We Will Survive. Some people don't like that beat. How? It's soulful. It's the drums are knocking. You got to keep in mind, this is the pivotal era. This is in the cusp or right before or even during the Swiss Beats era, whereas the keyboard, thin sounds that sound very cheesy today, they didn't age well. This album aged well, although they did sprinkle in some of the keyboard instrumentation. 1999 was kind of like a weird year in hip-hop where people were trying to find their sounds again. Nas presented an album that aged well roughly 22 to 23 years later. Go back and listen to it. Around that time, some of those albums, you can't even get past track 1. You can't even get past track 1. But this particular album definitely has that. Let's not forget I Am was dope. Secondly, we love to speak about what? People love to speak about album performance. This album, I Am, sold almost 500,000 first week, debut number 1. In 1999, there were only 3 albums ahead of him. DMX is Running Things. The Chronic, 2001, that's Dre. Born Again, that's a Biggie compilation after his death. Followed by I Am, and Sean Carter's after him. So he gave you lyrics, a quality project, and you received what? Album sales. So I'm confused. He checking all these boxes and people forgetting that it happened because it doesn't fit their narrative, right? It doesn't fit their narrative, and that's what it comes back to. It doesn't fit their narrative. Now, we went down reasons why I Am leak was a blessing. I'm giving very simple reasons. I'll let you go back and forth in the comment section and I'll gauge alongside you because I'm pretty sure you have some suggestions on your own. And now we're speaking on factual information that people tend to conveniently forget. And we're going over why we should not forget. I Am was dope. I Am sold records. Correct? Now, you have some people who are lifetime contrarians, and they'll say, yeah, that's all cool, but I disagree because Nostradamus was whacked. Once again, things have to play out in a certain fashion for us to get the very results that we want. I'm going to repeat that. Some things have to play out in a certain fashion for you to receive the results that you want, whether it's music, life, basketball, it don't matter what it is. That I Am leak was a blessing because you got Takeover, you got Ether, you got Stillmatic, you got Godson, Last Real Ninjas Alive. You received all of that. You received all of that. You received all of that. So how could you still go along with this narrative if it's not biased? It has to be biased, right? Your narrative is biased because the facts speak for themselves. We've got dope beats, lyrics, music that aged well, sold records. This is criteria I hear about for the last 20 years. He did all of that. But we only harp on one piece of information, which is this album. But the I Am album being leaked was a blessing to both Nas, his fans, and the hip-hop genre as a whole, man. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation, man. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment below, and share with your family and friends. You heard? As always, as we stay here at the Ease Experience, go get yours. Yeah!